So now we'd like to talk about the elements of IoT.
Right. So let's break down IoT more in like a basic language that all of us would understand. So what is the start point of IoT? Where does this all begin? So it has to begin with something that senses, a physical object that might sense. For example, now I have this Fitbit. Now it's actually sending a small signals to my pulse, and then it's collecting this data. So, or it could be maybe light is falling on. I'm sure you guys have used your mobile phones, and when you talk on it, and the screen suddenly it minimizes, and when you see move it away from your phone, you could actually see that who's calling, what's happening. So there is a sensor on your mobile phone where when you keep it next to your ear, the screen goes off. Thereby, it's maximizing efficiency, and there are chances that we might, it might, since all of our body is capacitive, it might just hit somewhere and something might happen. So all of these are called sensors, where they sort of sense the kind of data, be it light, temperature, pulse, or anything. That's the start point. That's your element number one, fundamental, which is a sensor, a hardware.
Now after sensing, there's one important aspect, it's called communication. Now many IoT devices we are seeing today are not designed for optimal communication. The devices cannot directly communicate with the servers. So for example, if you're wearing a fitness tracker, it has a sensor installed. It has to be connected to some kind of a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth or through your smartphone, where essentially there will be a mobile application where you can actually send and receive data and you can view the data. So for example, like I said, Bluetooth is one of the best examples that can be used. You have GPSs installed in cars, automobiles, which sends and receives data from the cloud, and that's where the communication part is done.
Absolutely. So now that we have collected data from our sensors, and now that you recently told us that this data is communicated to us using devices such as mobiles, right? So how does this transmission of information happen? He said it could be either Bluetooth, it could either be GPS or anything. But it has to, now this data, how does it get to us? How are you watching us? That's called internet. So there is something called cloud, which is like what cloud is. The internet is basically the place where all of this data is collected and transmitted to various devices. Right.
Correct. So the last we'll talk about is called delivery of information. That's the final step where the delivery of useful information happens to the user. So for example, you have a Fitbit on your wrist. It senses the number of steps you traveled in a day, and that data is sent to the cloud. It's delivered. That information is delivered to the cloud, and that's where you see it on your mobile app, and you receive how many calories have you burned and what's the kind of fitness rate which is going on.
Right, so this is how the whole flowchart really happens, and it's really simple, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sensors collects the data, moves to the internet, and then through that goes to the device, and that's where you can view it. Right. So now what we could actually talk about. Now there are different kind of questions that we are asked by us. This is what IoT is, but I'm in the industry where I'm just dealing with I'm a retail seller. Why do I need IoT? Or someone might say that I do a business which is related to manufacturing. Why do I need internet? Or very generically, a lot of people say we have a business, and how do we grow? And how do we maximize, increase our efficiency using IoT? So good thing is that there is awareness about IoT, but really sad that not many people know about what it could do. So what we can actually talk about and tell our viewers today is the various kind of, devices which are virtually used to connect to us. For example, we could talk about RFIDs. So the basic example of RFID would be our metro card. So that would probably have an RFID chip. The moment I sort of put it to the metro sort of gate, it opens up. That's an RFID. Then there are different kind of sensors which would basically be collecting your data and processing it. They could be a smart tech, which are basically are related to power. So, for example, I just gave you a beautiful example where I'm walking. I just woke up at night maybe, and I have to walk to my gate. The lights will automatically open up as I'm stepping forward, and as soon as I'm done with it, the lights would close. Thereby, efficiency of energy would come into picture. Now there are also ways where let's talk about healthcare, where I'm a diabetic patient, and the one most nagging thing really for a diabetic patient, or the most critical thing would be when do they take their insulin. So now what will start to happen, there are really small devices that could be probably put in your body, and the moment that the sensors sort of sense that the insulin levels are going down, they would just pump in the insulin. So there are various different kind of ways that this can be used in our daily lives. You could elaborate more on that actually.
So when we think of IoT, we believe it's a relatively new term, but the technology behind IoT has been going around for a while now. We have been living in the computer age since the 20th century. It wasn't until the World Wide Web was there in 1991 when a lot of people began hopping online and they understood the power of internet. The web became vast, and soon high-speed internet entered our household along with wireless networking present everywhere. Smartphones have become a commodity these days, and devices are connected all over the world through Wi-Fi, cellular network, as well as Bluetooth.
Right. Alright, so we have probably given our viewers a lot of insight about how what IoT is and how can they use it, and of course the elements of IoT. So everyone is pretty much familiar with the terminologies of what IoT would probably